Welcome to the Vida Spiritual Connection. I'm Science of Mind practitioner Gary Takesian, and it is my honor to bring you today's message. So the title today is Why Science of Mind? And we're going to look at what is science of mind and where did it come from? Science of mind is a philosophical and spiritual practice that grew out of the mid-1800s metaphysical movement known as New Thought. The noted early 20th century philosopher William James once called New Thought the religion of healthy-mindedness, and that's because of its focus on mental and physical healing through the power of mind and spiritual awareness. Now, in general, New Thought believes that the divine is not separate from humankind, but dwells in all people and in all things, and that humanity's thoughts are a creative force for the spiritual healing of negative consequences and conditions in our personal lives. Science of mind was also known in earlier times as religious science, and is based on the writings of Dr. Ernest Holmes, who lived from 1887 to 1960. He published his seminal work, The Science of Mind and Spirit, in 1926, after years of studying many of the world's great philosophical, religious, and scientific authors. Holmes claimed no divine inspiration, instead saying that his work originated from many sources, old and new, and is available to anyone who wishes to study it. Ernest Holmes founded the Institute of Religious Science in 1927, primarily as a teaching and study institution. He said of his work, "Religious science is the correlation of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the revelations of religion applied to human needs and aspirations of humankind." When Ernest Holmes founded the Institute, he had no intention that it become a church or religion. He felt that his teaching into how our minds work and how we can use it would benefit folks regardless of their spiritual path. Now, some years later, however, he relented when a significant number of Science of Mind followers came to him wanting a place of their own to gather and study, and thus was born the Church of Religious Science, now known as Centers for Spiritual Living. With the overwhelming number of religions and spiritual paths available to the world, what makes Science of Mind special? Well, in essence, Science of Mind is about empowering each of us to live the best life that we can live, right here and right now. Science of Mind offers spiritual and intellectual tools today so that we can live this best life to the fullest and in the present moment. Because the present moment is all we really have. It's important to understand that the past lives only in our memories of what happened in a previous present moment. The future exists only in our imagination as we try to anticipate what might happen in a future present moment. And for as much as living in the present moment is the desired state, we all do spend varying amounts of time either rehashing memories of the past or anxiously imagining some type of unknown future. In this back and forth between past and future, the present moment can become lost and our power to effect change along with it. Where Science of Mind teaching really shines is in the hope from our tagline, "Change your thinking, change your life." It encourages us that if we're not satisfied with how life is unfolding, we can use this teaching to change our life circumstances by changing the way we think about our current situation. As we look to make changes in our lives, we're supported by our Science of Mind teaching that the future is not predicated on the past. Since we know that the past is but a collection of memories, and we understand that those effects are not cast in concrete, we free ourselves to creatively approach the changes we desire. We're not obligated to honor and carry around with us thoughts and feelings from the past that interfere with our current life intentions. In Science of Mind, we're taught that each of us is the author of our own life experience. How we interact with life and what we can expect in return is entirely up to us. Much of this teaching is based on the premise that we live in a cause and effect universe. We get back from life what we put into it. If we plant tomato seeds, we expect to get tomatoes. And so it goes. What we put out into the universe equals what we receive back. The law of cause and effect, along with our change your thinking, change your life motto, form the backbone of our creative Science of Mind teaching. Another significant aspect of the Science of Mind teaching is the new thought belief that no separation exists between us and Spirit, or God. We do not believe in a God that is up there somewhere reigning over us down here. From the biblical reference that says humankind is made in the image and likeness of God, Science of Mind accepts that and goes further to say that if we believe that God created all that exists, and that nothing can exist outside of God, then each of us are a part of God, a unique and yet individual expression of the divine. We believe that what is true for God on the universal level is true for each of us on the individual level. We understand that we are imbued with the same creative power as our Creator. Unlike many other spiritual traditions, Science of Mind has no ancient texts, no spiritual gurus. Those of us who follow Science of Mind have nothing to confess, promote, or renounce. There are no initiations, and thankfully no secret handshakes. And to his credit, Ernest Holmes maintained that the Science of Mind should remain open at the top, meaning that no final chapter has been or likely will be written, and therefore this teaching should continue to welcome new understandings of human development. To better understand why Science of Mind is special, it's important to look at the predominant cultural environment that surrounded many of us as we were growing up. Because we know that many of our foundational beliefs about the world around us formed during our early years, and we know that that would include our formative beliefs when it comes to religious traditions. Now, if you were raised in a Western culture, as many of us were, then whether your family unit was religiously observant or not, the predominant beliefs of Judeo-Christian traditions were deeply ingrained in our culture, and therefore in each of us. Without going into too much detail, just consider how easily we take for granted various biblical laws like the Ten Commandments that have found their way into our judicial and social practices. And then there are the holidays we celebrate, like Christmas and Easter, and even Halloween, that have their origins in those traditional religious practices. The effects of these cultural traditions are to our consciousness like water is to the fish. They are there, we live within them, but they are rarely brought to the forefront of our awareness as something we may want to examine. And as a result, we don't realize the lasting effects that these cultural influences have on our day-to-day navigating through life. Important concepts like heaven and hell, eternal judgment, sin and forgiveness. These are but a few examples of how these religious cultural ideas have taken root in our Western society and can have substantial effect on how we see our place in the universe and the possibility for changing our worldview. So, why is Science of Mind not as prevalent as some of the mainline traditions? Well, during our formative years, Science of Mind was virtually unknown to many of us. Since it was founded in the early years of the 20th century, that makes science of mind relatively new when compared to the world's major religions. And it follows that the number of folks raised in the science of mind tradition over the last 100 years would be comparatively few. And consider that science of mind traditionally does not proselytize. You would not likely see a science of mind practitioner or minister preaching on a street corner to those passing by. Folks tend to find science of mind when they are seeking something more satisfying spiritually. It's like the old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. It's no surprise then that many who discover science of mind do so later in life. And in large part, that's due to several reasons, the most important of which is that many folks raised in Western culture experience a growing dissatisfaction with the philosophical answers about who we are, our place in the universe, and that which is offered by the traditional spiritual paths. When things don't quite fit us, we tend to look elsewhere for answers. One of the attractions of science of mind is the lack of fear-based compliance. Science of mind makes no demands that we follow the teachings to the letter or risk suffering dire consequences if we don't. Other faith traditions will use what I think of as the carrot and stick approach. You are loved and welcome as long as you comply with the beliefs, and if not, beware. Rules upon rules upon rules. We need look no further than the Old Testament books of the Bible and how many admonishments begin with "thou shalt not," and they're usually followed by the prescribed punishments. Prominent among these is what has become known as fall redemption theology. In that tradition, they believe that there is a gulf between God and humanity, and that people are born into sin and require constant forgiveness to remain in good standing. You won't find any of that in the science of mind. Ernest Holmes believed that there is a kernel of truth in all spiritual traditions, and therefore we welcome seekers from any path. We don't practice blaming or shaming as a means of keeping people in line. We believe that the only thing that remotely approaches sin is wrong thinking. And that's where our teaching reminds us that we can change our thinking to make substantial changes in our lives. In our Science of Mind promotional literature, you'll often find the catchphrase, "Science of Mind, a philosophy, a way of life." This teaching offers us a way of understanding the world around us while giving us the spiritual tools to creatively live the life we desire. Peace and blessings, and so it is. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to the Vida Spiritual Connection. Use the links in the description for a prayer request, to donate to Vida, or to join the Vida mailing list. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Please visit vidaslc.org for more information.